Hero's favorite boss fights of all time. A collection of hero. Why is it highlighting from the bottom when I'm highlighting from the top? Why is it doing that? A collection of Hero 21's favorite boss fights of all time. Hero's favorite boss fights of all time tier list. Like the Hollow Knight, I know I put him last on my Hollow Knight tier list, but that wasn't ranking how much I like the bosses. The Hollow Knight is gonna go A tier in our favorite boss ranking. Now, I shit on the Hollow Knight in my Hollow Knight ranking video. If you've not seen it, it's in the YouTube. When this is on YouTube, I'll link it to the video if I remember. I normally don't. I'll say on screen if I remember or not. But this guy, while he is one of, if not the easiest bosses in the entire game, the boss fight itself, incredible. The build up to this boss fight is probably the most build up there is to a boss fight in maybe any of the games that I've played. I mean, in Jedi Fallen Order, there's so much build up to the second sister because you fight her so many times. Gilroy the Administrator, you fight him several times. There's lots of build up, but the build up to this guy is insane. You learn about him throughout the game. You know, there's a statue of him that gets a cutscene. You know once you get the Dreamer cutscene that this guy's going to be the guy you're going to fight. I mean, to me, it's as you know, I thought it was very obvious that the Hollow Knight is you're gonna fight him as final boss. But when you get there, it's like this is the guy the game's named after. He's locked away. You need to break the chains. The music might be the best boss theme of all time. I mean, the Grim theme is incredible as well, but for a different reason. This guy is definitely my favorite boss in the game, despite how underwhelming the boss fight feels. I think that's why he's not in S tier. Is because even though the boss itself is like incredible to fight in terms of atmosphere and build up, the gameplay, it's so easy. I'm so glad the Pure Vessel exists as a true difficult fight. One of the harder fights in the game. But the Hollow Knight himself, not in S tier, because the gameplay doesn't match the build-up. He's in A tier on aura, on design, on build-up, on lore, on music, on arena, on cutscene, on everything, except from his gameplay, because it's too easy and it's disappointing. I know there are harder bosses you can do after in the Pantheons. I know Radiance exists. I know Pure Vessel exists. I know Grim exists, even though my opinion on Grim and Nightmaking Grim is not everyone's thing. Look at the other video for that. He is an incredible boss, one of the best bosses of all time, but is stuck in A tier. He's not up there with some of the GOATs. Let's rank the other boss from Hollow Knight that's on the list, Grim. It's gonna go B tier. Now, Grim. Is Grim the final boss of the game? No, he's not. Does Grim have the same build-up that the Hollow Knight has? No, Grim has zero build-up. I mean, you see him, you do some quests for him, but, you know, there's no... He sort of is just there, which is fine. Don't need Grim to act like that. Hey, this is a list of my favourite boss fights of all time. The fact that he's on my list of favourite boss fights of all time, I'm not doing him dirty. I'm just saying he's B tier in comparison to some of the other bosses. Okay, I want to be fair. I want to be just. Also, welcome into the stream. Hope you're having a good one. Hope you're having a good day. Grim is probably my favourite fight in the game, gameplay-wise. I prefer the gameplay of Grim to Hollow Knight. Makes sense. Hollow Knight, piss easy. Grim, you know, a little bit challenging. Grim took me the most amount of tries out of any boss in Hollow Knight to beat. I think it was about 7 or 8 tries to beat Grim, which is an achievement for Hollow Knight, where 80% of the bosses you do without taking any damage on the first try. I don't know who playtested Hollow Knight, but clearly they were blind and, you know, one hand. But that's fine. It's not I guess it's just not marketed as a difficult game. That's a conversation for another time. We talked about that in the tier list. What about Nightmare King Grim? I prefer normal Grim to Nightmare King Grim in terms of my favorite bosses in Hollow Knight, because I'll summarize it very quickly. Nightmare King Grim is too easy. Nightmare King Grim is not the difficulty spike that I was expecting. Like, for example, Hollow Knight and Pure Vessel. Pure Vessel is much stronger than Hollow Knight. It's not even close. Hollow Knight, easiest boss in the game. Pure Vessel, one of the strongest bosses in the game. I mean, probably up there with Grim, with being the most difficult bosses in the game. Regular Grim. Nightmare King Grim, I did on my first try. And if it's a boss that I can do on my first try, I mean, that's... Are we really saying it's that great? Admittedly, I did Hollow Knight on my first try, and he's on the list as well. But, like, I was expecting more from Nightmare King Grim, because Nightmare King Grim... Grim himself is difficult. Nightmare King Grim is very easy. Normal Grim is harder. So Normal Grim goes on my list. Just because of, that, basically. Did you fight Radiance? I did fight Radiance. Radiance took me 3 or 4 tries. It's meh. For example, the Hollow Knight. Even though the Hollow Knight is my favourite boss fight in the entire game, it was so incredibly underwhelming because it's so easy. And like Radiance, okay, I have to fight the Hollow Knight to get to Radiance. I had to do this thing in the Abyss to unlock this cutscene and get this item. Okay, Hornet's here, it's a big thing, and then Radiance is like, what, 3 tries, 4 tries? I mean, the Hive Knight took me longer to beat than Radiance. The bloody Hive Knight. Though that's for unrelated issues, not relating to the boss fight and more relating to the Hive itself and how much BS it is to move around there. Gameplay-wise and also music-wise, design-wise, Grim's up here. But he's not really competing with any of these other bosses. In fact, I might knock him down a tier to C tier. I'm not saying he's C tier. If this was a Hollow Knight boss ranking based on how much I like the bosses, he'd be S tier. He'd be top of A tier. But compared to some of these other bosses, C tier. Right, I'm going to talk about the Bloody Whale from Genshin Impact, okay? This is such a left field pick to be on this list, but I was, this is the only boss in the game that actually stands out to me. This boss, first of all, the design of the boss, it's a narwhal, but the textures of like the I don't know how to describe it. Whatever the texture is of the boss, and like the galaxy like blue thing, the vibe, I don't know, is incredible. It's impeccable. Whatever that texture is, I don't know how to describe it. The boss fight arena, you're fighting again. Okay, I can't really describe it because I can't really picture it in my mind right now. But it's just so visually stunning. It's the most visually stunning arena in the game. The boss is incredibly visually stunning. The phases as well, when suddenly you're just fighting this guy whose sword has got a black hole in it. This guy is just wearing black holes as aesthetics. If a boss is wearing black holes and they just got a black hole in his sword, because why not? Like, immediately you know, okay, this is a boss that means business. He's got a black hole on him. The design is incredible. The music, just randomly switching up to dubstep in his second phase, is fantastic. Gameplay-wise, the boss is incredibly easy, right? It's very, very easy. He only really does damage in his second phase. His first and his last phase, he basically just doesn't do anything. You just hit him and he doesn't really hit you. But the boss is up on this list specifically because the design is incredible, the arena is incredible, the music is heavenly with the dubstep randomly out of nowhere for absolutely no reason. And in the story, the boss fight is great as well, even though it's a bit different because they always do the bosses differently in the boss fights or whatever. In fact, I want to put it above Grim. It's on this tier list again, specifically design, music, atmosphere, but in terms of the actual boss fight, it's lacking. That's why it's going down in C2 with Grim. Okay. Cuphead, specifically Ruby and Croaks. When I was thinking of this list, I was thinking, we need at least one Cuphead boss. I tried to only keep it to one boss per game, but I just wanted to include two for Hollow Knight because the Hollow Knight, there's no gameplay. The gameplay is weak, and I wanted a boss that had good gameplay from Hollow Knight, sort of to balance it out. That's why he's there. It is the Gambling Duo Frogs, yes. My favourite boss from Cuphead. Is it the most difficult boss? No, it's one of the easiest bosses in the game. Is it one of the best visually designed bosses? No, some of the later bosses, like the Ghost Train, or King Dice, or the Devil, Werner Vermin, amazing design bosses, amazing design concepts. The reason this boss is here is because in my very first playthrough of Cuphead, back before I was doing all these no damage and no death run challenges that I've done on Twitch, this boss took me so long to beat when I was like 10 or like 9. I don't remember when Cuphead came. I didn't get it when it came out, but like this is a while ago. When I played this when I was a child, I struggled so much on this boss, and beating it is the most rewarding I felt the most rewarded I've ever felt beating a boss fight. Some of these bosses up here, like for example the Hollow Knight, I didn't feel rewarding. When I beat him, I felt like, oh, like that's it. What was that? Was that really the whole boss fight? But with some of these other bosses, when you beat them, it's like, oh my god, that was an incredibly difficult boss fight. I feel so good beating it. The Ruby and Croaks are that for me in Cuphead. They were the boss not the boss that took me the longest, but one of the bosses I struggled with the most when I was younger. That going back at the game now is incredibly easy, but beating them, I felt so rewarded from beating them that that feeling is always stuck with me. Whenever I beat a difficult boss and I feel so rewarded beating them, I automatically think of Ruby and Croaks and how I felt beating Ruby and Croaks. So they're up here on it's I guess nostalgia on how good it felt to beat the boss when I beat them. Also, I mean, we can talk other things. Design, they've got a decent concept. I like that they randomly turn into a slot machine for absolutely no reason. The music, probably top 5 boss tracks in the game. I replay them a lot because especially when I was doing like my beating the game without dying, they're one of the first bosses in the game. I play them so many times compared to some of the later bosses. And it's just a lot of fun to go back and beat them up a little bit. B tier because of, I guess, all that nostalgia, and gameplay-wise, they're still good gameplay-wise. It's not so difficult, but it is a challenging fight. Not like the stupid whale, not like the Hollow Knight where they're piss easy. It's still a good challenge, but for someone who's a quote-unquote Cuphead veteran, very easy for me at this point. But gameplay-wise, design-wise, whatever, all incredibly good. Next up, Gilroy the Administrator. Final phase, true form, final, none of this first time you fight him bullshit. Fully fledged, he's actually a difficult boss. Gilroy the Administrator, to go back to the tier list, is a good boss. I mean, I think you missed the glazing I gave him, putting him at the top of this tier list 4 times. Again, I'll still go through it again, but it might not just be as in-depth, because I did yap on about him for quite a while earlier, and the stuff I say about Gilroy can be applied to, like, Julius and some of these other bosses down here. You fight him 3 times in the game. The first 2 times you fight him, he's not at his full form. The first time you fight him is the hardest boss in the game. I think full stop. The first time you fight him is the hardest boss. The second time you fight him is like a weird middle-ish where he's easier, but he's got some new attacks. Meh. I wish they made the second fight a bit more difficult, but it's still good. It's not still good. It's still better than all the other bosses in the game. But his true final phase, if you're doing the true ending, because depending on what ending you're doing, the bosses are different, damage and health and attacks and whatever, different phases. His true phase is incredible. is very. I wouldn't say it's very difficult. It's decently difficult. It's one of the more difficult bosses in the game. It's probably more difficult than every other boss that's currently on the tier list. Yeah, not yeah. It's the strongest boss out of the five that's on the tier list so far. It's This is a weird one for me to describe because there's nothing specific about it that's great. Like with the Narwhal, I can point out the music, the design, the arena. With the Hollow Knight, again, the arena, the build up to the boss fight is incredible. With Gilroy, it's just the gameplay itself is so good. The build up is good because you've seen this character for like the first time he appears is about halfway through the game, maybe 3/5 of the way through the game. And so you know he's an antagonist. And as you play through the second half of the game, you learn his connection to the main character. You learn his connection to the cast of side characters. You learn his connection to the events that happened in the city and why everything is in ruins. And you learn like his purpose and why he was created. And so getting the final fight, there is a lot of build up to him being the final boss fight. It's different to the Hollow Knight because you don't see the Hollow Knight until the final fight. You have already fought Gilroy. You fight him before you even learn about any of his lore. So it's a bit less build up because you know he's going to be the final boss and you've already fought him, so you know sort of what he does. But there's still great build up and it's still quite a good fight and cutscene and whatever. But by far the best part about him is the gameplay. It's one of those bosses where the first time you fight him, pure mayhem, exactly. The first time you fight him, you don't know what the hell's going on. He's just nuked the whole stage, the whole arena. You're thinking, how the hell am I supposed to dodge that or parry that? And then you do it a few more times, and you're like, oh, I can dodge at this moment, or I can stand in this area of the screen, or if I do this, or I do, you learn. It's kind of like, with most bosses, you learn the boss fight and it's easier. But with some of his attacks, they're so flashy, they're so big, it feels like there's no way to dodge them. It feels like they are impossible attacks that take up the whole screen. How do you deal with them? And then learning his attacks feels more satisfying than learning any other boss's attacks, ever, really, for me. It's so satisfying. It's rewarding to beat him. It's not as rewarding as some other bosses because I've beaten him twice. I beat the final boss fight without doing the true ending already, so I sort of know what's going on. But all in all, an incredible boss fight. Below the Hollow Knight, I mean, gameplay-wise, S tier, above all of these bosses. But if we take everything into perspective, I feel like the build-up for the Hollow Knight, I don't know if that can be beat. The build-up around him, the hype around him, the music, when he spawns in, when you free him from the cage and he spawns in, it's so, like, powerful. I don't know how to describe it. I'm sort of glazing. But, yeah, I think A tier, not as good as the Hollow Knight. But, again, different things. I mean, these three bosses are here for gameplay. These two bosses are here for things that are definitely not gameplay. These final three bosses I left till last. The others I sort of did whatever, willy-nilly. I think these three bosses are my favourite three bosses in video game history. These five are all probably top 10, maybe not these two, but they're all some of my favourite bosses of the time. These three are my three favourite boss fights in video game history, full stop. They're all going in S tier. However, which way round do they go? But I think in third place, I'm going to put Julius in third place. Now, Julius, for quite a few months, I was considering putting him at number 1. I was considering saying he is the best boss fight of all time. However, I don't think he is. I don't have any negative things, right? all these bosses, there's been something negative about them. Not necessarily something that's bad, but something that's keeping them away from the elusive S tier. Julius. We're going to glaze him. Here he is at the top of my tier list for his game. I think... I'm just going to go through all the different categories. Music. I mean, it's not Hollow Knight music, which, you know, is legendary, but it's an incredible piece. I like how the song changes when you get to his third phase, which is something the game just does very well, is the boss music. And all of the boss themes are somber. Most of them are mostly somber. Anyway, the arena is great. The build-up for him is... There's not much build-up. You know that you're climbing a tower where the king lived. You know that because just common sense, you're going up to the throne room at the top of the tower. At the top of the castle, at the top of the tower, throne room where the king is. You've read notes about the king, and I think you've read notes about Julius, except I don't know if you know who he is. They definitely sort of mention him, but there's nothing crazy information about him. After you beat him, you get some crazy lore about how he's the illegitimate son of the king and how he was abandoned and or stolen as a child and whatever. I don't quote me. I don't know it was like super well anymore, but the build up when you go into the actual room is very good. You're going in, you know it's the throne room. It's called the throne room. You go in there, and you know when I went in there, I was like, is there going to be is the king going to be there? Am I going to find the king of Land's End? No, you find the king's corpse and crown at the bottom of the stairs, and who is sitting on the throne but Julius, the king's son. Now, I mean, for me, that image is... You walk into a room and there's just someone sitting on the throne and the king's dead at their feet. Automatically, aura points, automatically this boss, you know, is going to be a good boss. You know that he's going to be a good boss. And the fight is incredible. Basically, take everything I said about Gilroy and sort of apply that to whatever this guy's called, Julius. His attacks, while not as insane as Gilroy, like they're not, oh my god, how do I dodge these attacks? Some of the attacks he does are very fast, they do a lot of damage, and he doesn't really give it away. Like some bosses, you can sort of tell when they're doing an attack based on what the boss is doing, like action-wise, how they're standing, like different like particles and stuff. Some of it is his attacks. Little to no indication. It's quite a difficult boss. It's definitely a step up compared to all the other bosses in the game up to him, but he is one of the last bosses in the game, so it makes sense. In fact, if you do the first ending, like the bad ending, he is the final boss for the first ending. Gameplay-wise, you know, it's one of those ones where learning his attacks feels so satisfying. In your first few runs, you're getting cooked. You don't even make it close to the second phase. But then once you learn his attacks, and you're in a pattern of dodging behind him, so you can hit him, you can't hit this guy from the front, he's got some sort of shield ability. Dodging his attacks, you're parrying some of his attacks, you're getting behind him when he does attacks that cover the entire screen, so that you don't get hit. It's so very satisfying to fight him. I think gameplay-wise, better than all the bosses below him. Design-wise, I really like his design. I'm a stickler for a knight. You know, as you can tell by like all of these guys being knights. I know the Hollow Knight's a bit different, but design-wise, music-wise, arena-wise, build-up-wise, especially gameplay-wise, and as a nice little added bonus in End Lilies and Ender Magnolia, when you defeat bosses, you get abilities from the boss, and the ability you get from him is you get his melee weapon, and you get his strongest ability, which basically just shoots a laser that covers most of the screen on one of your sides. Like the best abilities in the whole game. So when you beat him, yeah, he's the best boss in the game, and he gives you the best abilities in the game, which is a nice little bonus. We're not really counting that towards this. I think I'm going to put... I think I'm putting Vader in second place, and we'll get to Godfrey when I get to Godfrey. Let's not glaze him until we get there. We can put him in D tier. It's a little bit of a clickbait for anyone who looks at the video and thinks I've slapped him in D tier. Look at the stream. Okay, so Darth Vader from Jedi Survivor is a probably not less known than Endless and Never earlier, but particularly compared to Hollow Knight, Cuphead, it's a lesser known game. This is going to require a little bit of explanation for people who haven't played the games. Obviously, Darth Vader in Star Wars is a menace. One of the strongest characters in the canon of the films and the TV shows and whatever. At the end of the first game, Darth Vader appears, except it's not a boss fight, because in the first game, you're just not even strong enough to have a chance of fighting Vader. It's not a boss fight, it's just a running section. You spend 5-10 minutes, however long it is, I don't remember exactly, just running away from Vader and escaping. I mean, you barely escape from him. It's very, very tense. In the second game, Vader pulls up, and you get to fight him in a 1v1. Which, the build-up for it is great, because of what happens at the end of the first game. The events that lead up to it, there's like a big siege on the you're not in a temple, but you're in like a whatever temple-y area. There's a big siege on it, and there's a lot of hype, a lot of build-up. You know, some of the characters are out of action, they're injured, they're flying away, they're running away, and he pulls up in one of the coldest entrances in fiction. They have some banter, and then the health bar appears, and you're fighting Darth Vader. I mean, if anyone's seen Star Wars, I mean, fighting Darth Vader is enough hype on its own. You don't need build-up. It's Darth. You know who he is. As soon as he appears, you know what sort of fight you're expecting. You're expecting the most difficult fight in the game. Is it the most difficult fight in the game? No, it's like second or third. Is it the best fight in the game? Yes. Now, I'm talking from the perspective of someone who played it on the hardest difficulty in the game, so this might be different for easier difficulties. But the fight is very difficult because he does so much damage. He's got several attacks, or at least one attack, that just one-shots you. It's a ranged attack. He just one-shots you, the fight's over, try again. You know, I'm not a big fan of attacks that one-shot you, but it's Darth Vader, I was willing to look past it. He is very challenging the first time you fight him. It's the same thing that I said about Grim in my Hollow Knight ranking videos, is that when you beat Grim once, you can beat him every time without challenge. That's why Nightmare King Grim, I think, is an easier boss fight than normal Grim, because once you've beaten Grim, you can basically beat Nightmare King Grim, right? It's basically the same fight, except it does 2 damage instead of 1. It's like the same thing. So, once you beat Vader once, if you replay Vader, he does, you know, not that difficult. It's very easy. There's a strategy you can use against Vader that is an elite strategy called attack him. Okay, let me analyze the strategy for you very quickly. You attack him. If you keep attacking him, he'll keep blocking your attacks, and he won't attack you. If you just keep it's basically like when you stun lock an enemy in a game, right? You just keep attacking him, and for some reason, the AI of the boss fight doesn't attack you back. But sometimes he breaks from it, and then he'll hit you with a one-shot move, and then it runs over. So I didn't discover it in my first time beating him. It was on a rerun playing the game. But the fight itself is very satisfying. There's a lot of like small cutscenes in the fight, and there's a lot of, you know, like between the phases and how the arena changes and how like he just lights on fire halfway through the fight. That's just sick. So the fight itself, very sick. Gameplay wise, it's not like Julius or Gilroy. Those gameplays are incredible. But the music, the atmosphere, the hype, the build-up, the boss fight itself are all deserving of being my favourite boss fight of all time. Which it was and has been since the game well, not since the game came out, but since I fought him for the first time, which would have been a few days or a few weeks after the game came out. I don't remember how long it took me to get to that point intermittently playing. But since I fought Darth Vader and Jedi Survivor, he has always been my favourite. Julius was a contender, but I put him behind him just because it's an incredible fight. To be fair, Vader and Julius and Godfrey, they can all be interchanged. You know, some days, maybe tomorrow, if I look back at this tier list, I'll be like, you know what, Julius should have been number 1. And then maybe the day after that, I'll be like, you know what, Darth Vader, maybe he's number 3. But at the moment, that is the headspace I'm in. Is that the Vader fight is always going to stick with me. You know, whenever I play a game and there's an incredible boss fight, the fight I compare it to is Vader. Is this as good as Vader from Jedi Survivor? It's not. Is this as good as Julius? Is this as good as Godfrey? Is this as good as fighting Darth Vader? Which, you know, some of these bosses are close. You know, these two are close. These ones are less close. Now, we have gotten to, in my opinion, the best boss fight in video game. Full stop. Again, I've not played every video game. You know, maybe there's a boss in Dark Souls 1 that's just incredible. Or maybe there's a boss in Terraria Calamity mod that is the best boss fight of all time. But, from my perspective, the best boss fight of all time is Godfrey, the first Elden Lord from Elden Ring. This boss has, like, 0 build-up. Is there any build-up to him? I think you hear his name, like, twice. There's a painting of him in the castle, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I fought him and I was like, I know who this guy is, but there's no sort of build-up. All the other bosses in my top 5, there is build-up. I mean, not really for Julius, but there is build-up. These 2 bosses especially, there's a lot of build-up to the fight. You're very hyped to fight him. Godfrey, I was like, okay, it's just some guy. Okay, oh, he's the first Elden Lord, that's pretty cool. But, like, he's just some weird ghost guy. Like, I don't really care. Like, meh, you know? And up until this point, my opinion on Elden Ring bosses is very low. I am not someone who's got the best opinion on Elden Ring. It's not my favourite game. I never finished it because I found it way too boring. I've started about 4 or 5 runs of Elden Ring. I've never gotten to the end because I just don't enjoy it enough. I keep trying to push myself to do it, but the truth is, I don't enjoy the game. I don't enjoy playing the game. You know, which is weird because of how many Metroidvanias and how many Souls-like I play. I mean, I've played maybe up to 10, and I love them. Like, my favourite genres of games. I don't like Elden Ring. Like, from a gameplay perspective, obviously the visuals are great, the music is great, the combat is okay. No, the combat's not great, but like gameplay wise, design wise, my biggest issue is how little the game tells you how to do anything. It's, you know, like being put in a room and told to do Morse code without having to know how to do Morse code. It's a different issue, though, with how much Googling the game requires if you want to do literally anything. Look on Discord. I'll look on Discord afterwards. I just want to, right at the end of the stream, I just want to get through this last guy so you can keep it sub 2 hour stream. Okay, so build up, no build up. My opinion on the game, very low going into the boss fight. My opinion of the gameplay in general, some of the bosses are okay. Like Margit and Godric are decent fights. Literally every other boss fight in the game that I fought, I didn't like. Some of the boss fights in Elden Ring are some of my least favourite boss fights of all time. In fact, I think I'm going to do another stream at some point where I rank my least favourite bosses in video game history, which is going to be 90% Hollow Knight and Elden Ring bosses. But that's a story for another day. So, no build-up. I'm not a fan of the game. Don't really know who this guy is. I don't really care. The arena itself, some sort of church area, it's alright. I'm not a big fan of it from a gameplay perspective because there's random pillars and elevation changes, which they do a lot in Elden Ring boss fights, which I think is meh, not my thing. The design of the boss, he's like a gold ghost. I mean, like, you can't even really see him. design-wise is meh. So what? That's losing all of the categories. There's not a single category that he should even be on this list. I mean, overall, D tier boss, E tier boss, F tier boss, what shit boss. However, the gameplay of fighting Godfrey, the gameplay in a game where I don't like the gameplay, the combat is unreal. It is elite god tier boss fight. I mean, we're looking at bosses like Julius, where the main reason he's up here is because of how good the boss fight is. Gilroy, the main reason he's up here is because of how good the boss fight is. Their build up and their design's good, whatever, but it's the gameplay that keeps them here. And this is a boss who has got a 0 in every category except gameplay, and he is the best boss I've ever fought in my life. How many tries did it take me to beat him? I don't remember exactly. It was one of the... Was it the boss I beat in the least amount of tries? It was definitely quicker than I beat both of Margit's fights and Godric's fight. Definitely, if not the easiest, one of the easiest boss fights in the game that I did. Which is whatever. But gameplay-wise, when you fight him the first few tries, it's an onslaught of axe swings and jumps and slams and shockwave thingy-mabobs, whatever his attacks are. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of difficult. Nothing crazy, thankfully. You know, he's not got a dragon head for an arm. He's not summoning stuff. It's not spawning lightning from the sky that strikes you and one-shots you like the stupid bloody tree sentinel boss outside the kingdom, the front gate. My least favorite boss fight in boss fight history. But after about, I think it was on like my 4th or 5th try, when it just clicked. Suddenly, here's a boss that I'm not even doing a fifth. I'm not even doing a fifth of his health bar, and in the next attempt, I do 9/10 of his health bar. As soon as I got the timing down for dodging his attacks and hitting him, I went from doing 10% to 90%. As I just said, I know I just said the same thing twice. Who cares? Once it clicked, once I understood the timing needed to beat this boss, it is the most satisfying boss fight ever. Because it's so easy to do him without taking damage. I'm pretty sure on the run where I beat him, I didn't get hit, or maybe I got hit once or twice when he was on like 10% health. I did like at least 90%. I think I might have got hit at the end, actually. I think I did 95% of his health bar without being hit. And it is so incredibly satisfying to dodge all of his attacks, to perfectly dodge, perfectly step out of the way, perfectly take a step back, move in with hits, use the ability that gives me extra attack. It is so satisfying. The gameplay is unlike anything I've seen. Well, I mean, not unlike anything I've seen. It's close to these gameplays. It's just fantastic. I don't have enough good words to describe how good the gameplay feels, how satisfying it feels. I kind of want to go back and replay Elden Ring just to fight this guy again. But yeah, it's incredible. I can't stop glazing the boss fight enough. The boss itself, meh. The build up, there's no build up. There's everything else. I don't even remember what the music was. The arena's mid. It feels very random. Boss fight happening literally. You fight this boss and then you are immediately in Margit's boss fight about 5 seconds later. Like there's no enemies between you and the next boss fight. Or there's one actually, but like you can just die and just respawn on the other side of him, and it's like whatever. Like he's so useless. Don't know why he's even there. So in every other category, this guy would be D tier. This guy's not even on the tier list. He'd be down here. But gameplay is so elite. He's the best boss of the time, in my opinion. Obviously, some days I'm feeling this, some days I'm feeling this, some days I'm feeling this. You know, but that is the list. I'm going to get the screenshot ready because I don't know what I want to use for my YouTube thumbnails and stuff. And that is going to be the stream.